Millionaire sees stranger giving drink to her daughter. But the impossible happens. Melissa Thompson froze in the middle of the central square of Denver when she saw that scene. A man of shabby appearance, with unkempt beard and worn-out clothes, was offering a cup of orange juice to her 9-year-old daughter who was in the wheelchair. It was at that moment that the impossible began to unfold before her eyes. Her daughter Emily accepted the drink with the naturalness of someone who knew that stranger well, smiling as she drank the juice, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Melissa felt her heart race. Who was that man? How did her daughter know him? Why did Emily seem so comfortable with a complete stranger? The questions hammered in her mind as she ran toward her daughter, but stopped abruptly when she heard the words that came out of Emily's mouth. "Thank you, Uncle from the hospital," said the girl with a genuine smile. Uncle from the hospital. Melissa racked her memory, trying to recall any employee from the hospital where Emily received treatment who looked like that man. Nothing. Absolutely nothing came to mind. The man had graying long hair, a beard that hadn't seen a razor in weeks, and clothes that seemed to have been fished out of a second-hand bazaar. When the man noticed Melissa approaching, his eyes widened. He murmured something quietly to Emily, something she couldn't hear, and quickly moved away from the wheelchair. Melissa saw when he stumbled slightly, and something fell from his pocket, but he didn't even stop to pick it up. He continued walking quickly, almost running, until he disappeared among the crowd circulating through the square on that Thursday afternoon. "Emily, who was that man?" asked Melissa, trying to control her tone of voice so as not to alarm her daughter. "The uncle from the hospital, Mom. You know him," replied Emily, still savoring the juice. "I don't know any uncle from the hospital, my dear. How do you know him?" Emily shrugged, as only children know how to do when they think adults are asking silly questions. "He always shows up when Dorothy brings me here to the park. He tells stories and brings fresh juice." Dorothy was Emily's nanny 3 years ago, a trustworthy woman Melissa had hired when she returned to work after the accident that left Emily in a wheelchair. But what park was this? Melissa thought Emily stayed home with Dorothy during the afternoons. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Melissa bent down and picked up the object that had fallen from the man's pocket. It was an old, faded badge from Rocky Mountain Medical Center, the same place where Emily had physical therapy. The name on the badge was illegible, but she could see it was from the physical therapy department and had a date from 3 years ago. "Emily, tell me more about this uncle. How long have you known him?" "Forever, Mum. He's really nice. Today he told me the story of the girl who could fly like a bird, and said that one day I'll be able to run just like she flew." Emily's words touched Melissa's heart in a strange way. For 2 years, since the car accident that left Emily paraplegic, no doctor had given hope that she would walk again. The best specialists in Denver were categorical. The spinal cord damage was irreversible. Melissa picked up Emily and placed her in the back seat of her Lexus. During the entire drive home, her mind couldn't stop thinking about that strange man and the badge that was now in her purse. When she got home, Melissa called Dorothy for a conversation. The nanny, a 50-year-old black woman with kind eyes, seemed nervous when Melissa mentioned the man from the square. "Mrs. Jenkins, I can explain," said Dorothy, wringing her hands. "Then explain, Dorothy, and also explain to me what park this is where you take Emily without telling me." Dorothy took a deep breath before she began to speak. "You always get so sad when you see Emily trying to play on the playground in the gated community. I thought it would be good to take her to a different place, where there are other children and where she doesn't feel different. Waterfront Park has an adapted area." Melissa knew Waterfront Park. It was a public place that was 15 minutes from home, but she had never thought of taking Emily there. "And the man, Dorothy?" "He showed up about 3 weeks ago. The first time I saw him, I thought he was just another homeless person wanting to ask for money. But he just looked at Emily and asked if she liked orange juice. When she said yes, he came back 5 minutes later with a fresh cup. And you let a stranger give a drink to Emily. Mrs. Jenkins, I saw in his eyes that he didn't have bad intentions, and Emily was so happy. It had been a long time since I had seen her smile like that. He started showing up every afternoon, always with a different juice and always with a new story to tell." "Do you know his name?" He never said. Emily started calling him the uncle from the hospital because he said he worked there once. He knows a lot about physical therapy, Mrs. Jenkins. He taught Emily some exercises that not even the physical therapists at the hospital taught. Melissa felt a chill down her spine. A complete stranger teaching exercises to her daughter. That crossed all limits. Dorothy, you understand that this is dangerous. We know nothing about this man. I know, Mrs. Jenkins, but he never asked for anything, never touched Emily inappropriately, never did anything that made me worried. He just takes care of her, as if she was special to him too. That night, Melissa couldn't sleep. She kept looking at the faded badge and trying to understand what was happening. The next morning, she called Rocky Mountain Medical Center and asked to speak to the director. Dr. Richard Peterson met her in his office that same afternoon. Melissa showed the badge and explained the situation. Mrs. Jenkins, this badge is indeed ours, but it's very old. I'll check our records. After a few minutes on the computer, Dr. Richard looked up with a confused expression. How strange. This registration number was deleted from our system 2 years ago. There is no information about who used this badge. What do you mean deleted? Sometimes that happens when an employee is fired for cause or when there is some serious problem. The records are removed to protect the hospital from possible legal issues. Melissa left the hospital more worried than before. Who was that man, and what had he done to have his records deleted? In the following days, she hired a private investigator. Michael Davis was a former police officer who now worked on family cases. Melissa gave him all the details she had. The description of the man, the place where he appeared, the time. I'll find out who this man is, Mrs. Jenkins. Give me a week. But the week passed, and Michael couldn't find any trace of the mysterious man. It was as if he had simply disappeared. Emily, in turn, became sadder every day. Every afternoon she asked when she would see the uncle from the hospital again. Melissa decided to take Emily to Waterfront Park to see if the man would appear, but there was no sign of him. "Mum, where is the uncle? He promised he would teach me a new exercise," said Emily with teary eyes. Melissa felt her heart break. She didn't know if she was protecting or harming her daughter by keeping that man away. It was then that she decided to search Emily's room. In a drawer of the study desk, she found a small collection of drawings she had never seen before. They were simple drawings, made with colored pencils, but they all had the same theme: a dark-haired girl running, jumping, dancing. On the back of each drawing was a signature: "For Emily, who will one day surprise the world, Uncle Robert." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Uncle Robert. Finally, she had a name. Melissa picked up the drawings and went back to Rocky Mountain Medical Center. This time she looked for older records of employees who worked there more than 3 years ago. The receptionist, an elderly lady with glasses named Mrs. Jenkins, looked at the name carefully. Robert. Robert. Oh yes, I remember. Robert Wilson. He worked in physical therapy, but he wasn't certified. He was an assistant, a very dedicated young man, always stayed after hours helping patients. What happened to him? Oh, my dear, it was a very sad situation. He was accused of practicing physical therapy without certification. They said he was putting patients' lives at risk with unconventional methods. And was it true? Mrs. Jenkins looked around to make sure no one was listening. Between us, I think it was unfair. The young man studied on his own, knew more than many certified physical therapists who work here. But you know how it is, right? You need a diploma for everything nowadays. Do you know where I can find him? I have no idea, dear. After he left here, I never saw him again. I heard he got a bit lost in life, couldn't get work anywhere. Melissa went home with even more questions. Robert Wilson, a physical therapy assistant who was fired for practicing without certification. But why was he so interested in Emily? And why did Emily seem to have such a strong connection with him? That night, Emily had nightmares. She woke up crying and calling for Uncle Robert. Melissa sat on her daughter's bed and hugged her. "Mom, I miss him. He said I was special, that one day I would walk again." Emily, the doctors have already explained that But Uncle Robert said doctors are sometimes wrong. He said he knew a girl the doctors said the same thing about, and she started walking again. Melissa felt something stir in her chest. Was it possible that this man really knew something the doctors didn't, or was he just creating false hopes in a child's mind? The next day, she decided to look for Michael, the investigator, again. "Michael, I want you to look for Robert Wilson, former employee of Rocky Mountain Medical Center, fired about 2 years ago. Is this the man from the square?" "Yes, and I want to know everything about him, where he was born, where he studied, where he lives, everything." Michael got information in 3 days. Robert Wilson, 45 years old, born in Aurora, studied up to high school and always worked in healthcare as an assistant. Never married, no children. Had been fired from Rocky Mountain Medical Center on allegations of practicing without a license. "But there's something interesting, Mrs. Thompson," said Michael. "I found people who worked with him at other hospitals. They all say the same thing, that he had a special gift for handling difficult cases, especially children with mobility issues. Where is he living now?" "That's the problem. No one knows. It seems he disappeared off the map after he left the hospital. No fixed address, no bank account, nothing." Melissa was starting to feel guilty. Maybe she had judged Robert too quickly. Maybe he really was a good person who just wanted to help Emily. It was then that she made a decision that would change everything. She asked Dorothy to start taking Emily to Waterfront Park every afternoon again, and she would go along herself, watching from a distance to see if Robert would appear. For a whole week, they went to the park without success. Emily was getting more discouraged each day, and Melissa began to notice that her daughter wasn't the same anymore. The physical therapy sessions at the hospital were yielding less progress, and Emily wasn't participating in activities with the same interest as before. Dr. Bryan, Emily's physical therapist, commented on the change. "Mrs. Thompson, Emily is being less cooperative during sessions. Did something happen?" "She's missing a friend." "I understand. Emotional state is very important in treatment. A motivated child progresses much faster." It was that afternoon, during the second week of searching, that Melissa finally saw Robert again. He was sitting on a distant bench, watching Emily play on the adapted playground. He had the same shabby appearance, but this time Melissa noticed something different in his eyes. There was sadness there, a deep melancholy. Melissa approached slowly, trying not to startle him. When she was a few meters away, Robert saw her and quickly stood up to leave. "Wait," shouted Melissa. "Please don't go, we need to talk." Robert stopped but kept his distance. "You don't want me near your daughter, I understand. I'm just watching from afar." "How do you know Emily?" Robert hesitated before answering. "I worked at the hospital when she began treatment. I saw all the tests, followed the case from the beginning." "But you were fired 2 years ago. Emily started treatment 2 years ago." I kept following along, not officially. I know I shouldn't have, but her case caught my attention." "Why?" Robert looked at Emily, who still hadn't noticed his presence. "Because I saw things in her tests that the doctors didn't see, or didn't want to see." Melissa felt her heart race. "What kind of things?" "Her spinal cord injury isn't as extensive as the reports say. There are areas that still have neural activity, but they're so small that traditional equipment can't detect them." "How can you know that?" "Because I spent 3 years studying similar cases. I took online courses, read everything I could find about spinal cord injuries in children. I developed my own stimulation methods." "Your own methods?" "Neural stimulation through visualization, specific exercises, even diet can influence regeneration. The juices I gave Emily had nutrient combinations that can help with recovery." Melissa didn't know whether to believe what she was hearing. It seemed too good to be true. "If you know all this, why don't you share it with the hospital doctors?" Robert's face closed off. "I tried. That's why I was fired." "What do you mean?" "Dr. Peterson, the hospital director, didn't want to hear my suggestions. He said I was just an assistant and should stick to what I was told to do. When I insisted, I was accused of practicing without a license." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Melissa was beginning to understand the situation. Robert was a man who had dedicated his life to helping children, but was punished for trying to go beyond what was expected of him. "Robert, do you really believe Emily can walk again?" "I don't believe it, Mom, I'm certain of it. But it would require intensive work with methods that traditional medicine doesn't accept yet." It was at that moment that Emily finally saw Robert. Her face completely lit up. "Uncle Robert!" she shouted, turning her wheelchair toward him. Robert looked at Melissa, silently asking for permission. She nodded. "Hi, Princess," said Robert, approaching Emily's wheelchair. "I missed you." "I missed you too. Mom, this is Uncle Robert I always talk about." Melissa watched the interaction between the two. It was impossible to deny the genuine connection that existed there. Emily was radiant, more excited than she had been in weeks. "Uncle Robert, can you teach me that new exercise you promised?" Robert looked at Melissa again. "Only if your mother allows it." Melissa was torn. Part of her wanted to protect Emily from false hopes, but another part saw how happy her daughter was in that man's presence. What kind of exercise? Their visualization and concentration movements. Nothing invasive, nothing that could hurt. It's more like a game, actually. "You can show her." Robert knelt beside Emily's chair. "Emily, close your eyes and imagine your feet are on a beach, feeling the warm sand." Emily closed her eyes and smiled. "Can you feel it?" "Yes, I can. Now imagine a cool little wave is washing over your feet." Melissa watched fascinated as Robert guided Emily through the exercise. It wasn't scientific at all, more like a guided meditation, but Emily was completely engaged. "Now, very slowly, try to wiggle your little toes as if you're playing with the sand." Melissa held her breath. For a moment, it seemed she saw an almost imperceptible movement in Emily's feet, but it could have been her imagination. "Very good, Princess. Did you feel anything?" "I felt a tingling, Uncle Robert." Robert smiled and looked at Melissa. "The sensation is already progress. It means there's a neural connection working." Melissa was confused. The doctors had always said Emily had no feeling below the waist. "Emily, did you really feel something?" "Yes, Mom. Just like when my foot fell asleep before the accident." Melissa decided she needed to know more about Robert and his methods. She invited him for coffee at a diner near the park. "Robert, tell me your story. How did you develop these methods?" Robert sighed, as if reliving painful memories. "When I was 20, my younger sister was in a motorcycle accident. The doctors said she would never walk again. I didn't accept that." "What did you do?" "I started studying everything about spinal cord injuries. I read scientific articles, watched online classes, talked to doctors from other countries. I discovered that in many cases the injury isn't total, but traditional methods can't take advantage of what still works." "And your sister?" "She walked again. It took 2 years, but she did it. That's when I decided to work in healthcare." "Why did you never go to physical therapy school?" "I didn't have the money for that. My family was poor and I needed to work to help at home, but that never stopped me from studying and learning." Melissa was starting to see Robert in a different light. He wasn't a charlatan trying to take advantage of the situation. He was a man who had dedicated his life to helping others because he had been through the same experience. "Robert, would you like to try to help Emily officially?" "How so?" "I can hire you as a private therapist. We can work together with the doctors at the hospital." Robert shook his head. "Mrs. Thompson, I appreciate the offer, but the hospital doctors won't accept my participation. They see me as an intruder." "Then we'll do it independently. You can come to my house and work with Emily there." "Are you sure, Ma'am? It won't be easy. My methods are different, and it may take time to see results." "Emily has never been as happy as she is now. That's already a result for me." Robert accepted the proposal, but with one condition: he didn't want to be paid. He said seeing Emily happy was reward enough. In the following days, Robert started visiting Melissa's house every afternoon. He brought materials he had prepared: drawings, games, music, all aimed at stimulating Emily's concentration and visualization. The sessions were different from anything Emily had experienced before. Robert didn't focus solely on physical exercises. He also worked with Emily's emotional state, self-esteem, and confidence. "Emily, you know you're a very special girl, right?" "Why, Uncle Robert?" Because you have an inner strength that many people don't possess. The accident didn't change who you are inside. Melissa observed the sessions and was impressed with Robert's dedication. He always arrived with something new, a juice with specific ingredients, a new game, an inspiring story. This juice has acai, spirulina, and ginger, he explained to Melissa. These are nutrients that can help with neural regeneration. Where did you learn about this? I read several studies about nutrition and neuroplasticity. Diet can be a powerful tool in treatment. After 2 weeks of sessions with Robert, Melissa noticed changes in Emily that went beyond the emotional. The girl was more alert, more participatory in the hospital's physical therapy sessions, and even Dr. Bryan commented on the improvement. Mrs. Thompson, I don't know what happened, but Emily is much more cooperative, and yesterday I had the impression that she reacted to a stimulus in her left leg. Melissa could barely contain her emotion. Could it be that Robert's methods were actually working? But not everything was smooth sailing. Dr. Richard Peterson, the hospital director, found out that Melissa was working with Robert and scheduled an urgent meeting. Mrs. Thompson, I have to warn you about the risk you're taking. Robert Wilson was fired for good reasons. He doesn't have proper training and could harm Emily's treatment. But she is improving, Doctor. Any improvement could be a coincidence. What I can guarantee is that unconventional methods can cause irreversible damage. Dr. Peterson was clearly bothered by the situation, but Melissa didn't understand why. Robert wasn't interfering with Emily's official treatment, just complimenting it. Doctor, may I ask exactly what Robert did to get fired? He insisted on applying his own methods against medical advice. He created false hope in patients and their families. That is irresponsible and dangerous. Melissa left the meeting confused. On one hand, she saw Emily progressing with Robert's methods. On the other, she had an experienced doctor warning about risks. She decided to speak directly with Robert about the meeting. Robert, Dr. Peterson warned me about the risks of your methods. He said you created false hope in patients. Robert's face grew sad. Mrs. Thompson, I never promised a cure to anyone. What I do is work with the possibilities that exist. In Emily's case, there is indeed a possibility of improvement. But Dr. Peterson said you went against medical advice. I suggested complementary treatments. I never asked to stop anything the doctors had prescribed, but he wouldn't accept anything that wasn't in the traditional protocols. Melissa realized she was in the middle of a conflict between traditional medicine and alternative methods. She didn't know who to trust, but she saw that Emily was happier and more hopeful. The situation became more complicated when Dr. Peterson threatened to interrupt Emily's treatment at the hospital if Melissa continued working with Robert. Mrs. Thompson, I cannot take responsibility for a patient who is undergoing unauthorized treatments. It was an ultimatum. Melissa needed to choose between the hospital, which offered scientifically recognized treatment, and Robert, who was bringing hope and happiness to Emily. That night, Melissa talked with Emily about the situation. Honey, we might have to stop the sessions with Uncle Robert. Emily's face fell. Why, Mom? The hospital doctors think it might not be good for you. But I'm feeling better. The other day I felt tingling in my whole leg. Melissa hadn't known about that. Emily was progressing more than she had imagined. Mom, Uncle Robert isn't doing anything bad to me. He's just teaching me to believe I can get better. Emily's words touched Melissa Thompson deeply. When was the last time someone had given her daughter real hope? Melissa made a brave decision. She would continue the treatment with Robert and look for another hospital for Emily's medical follow-up. When she told Robert this, he became worried. Mrs. Thompson, I don't want you to have problems because of me. Robert, for the first time in 2 years, Emily has hope of getting better. That's priceless. Robert intensified the work with Emily. Besides the visualization exercises, he introduced gentle physical movements, always respecting the girl's limits. Emily, today we're going to try something new. I want you to focus on your stomach muscles and try to contract them while imagining you're making an effort to get up. Emily followed the instructions, and to Melissa's surprise, she managed to make an almost imperceptible movement in her torso. I did it, Uncle Robert. I moved. Robert smiled but tried to contain his excitement. Very good, Princess, but remember it's a gradual process. Every small movement is a victory. Melissa was starting to believe that maybe a miracle was possible, but life still had more challenges ahead. A few weeks later, Michael Davis, the private investigator, called Melissa with disturbing information. "Mrs. Thompson, I found some interesting things about Dr. Richard Peterson. He has a history of conflicts with employees who proposed alternative methods." "What do you mean?" "In the last 5 years, 3 professionals were fired from the hospital in situations similar to Robert's. All claimed to have developed their own methods for difficult cases." "And what happened to them?" 2 moved to another city and never worked in the field again. The 3rd opened a private clinic but was sued by the hospital for alleged unfair competition. Melissa was starting to suspect there was more to this story than she imagined. "Michael, can you investigate if Dr. Peterson had any specific conflict with Robert? I'm already looking into it. But one thing I can tell you, I found a record of a patient who was treated by Robert and had significant improvements. The case was documented, but later the file disappeared from the hospital's system." "What do you mean disappeared?" "According to my source, Dr. Peterson ordered its removal because he considered the methods unscientific and didn't want them associated with the hospital." Melissa hung up the phone with a heavy heart. She was beginning to realize that Robert might be a victim of a system that didn't accept innovation. That afternoon, during the session with Emily, Robert introduced a more advanced exercise. "Emily, I want you to try to focus on your thigh muscles. Imagine you're trying to squeeze a ball between your legs." Emily closed her eyes and concentrated intensely. Suddenly, Melissa saw something that took her breath away. A clear and defined movement in Emily's leg muscles. "My God!" exclaimed Melissa. "I felt it, Mum. I felt my muscles moving." Robert was emotional, but tried to stay calm. "Emily, that's wonderful. It means the connection between your brain and your muscles is being restored." "Is that possible, Robert?" "Mrs. Thompson, what we just saw proves that Emily can indeed have a significant recovery. But it's still too early to have very high expectations." Melissa couldn't contain her emotion. For the first time in 2 years, she saw a real possibility of Emily walking again, but the challenges were far from over. The next day, Melissa received an unexpected call from the State Board of Physical Therapy. "Mrs. Melissa Thompson, we've received a complaint that you are allowing an unqualified individual to practice physical therapy with your underage daughter." Melissa Thompson's heart raced. "Who made this complaint?" "I can't reveal that, but it's our duty to investigate. We need to schedule a visit to assess the situation." Melissa knew exactly who had made the complaint. Dr. Richard Peterson wouldn't give up easily. When she told Uncle Robert about the call, he was devastated. "Mrs. Thompson, maybe it's better if I stop coming here. I don't want to cause problems for you and Emily." "Don't even think about it, Robert. Emily is making progress. I won't give up now. But if the board determines I'm practicing illegally, I could be sued. Then let's find a way to make it legal." Melissa sought out the best medical lawyer in Denver. Dr. William Bennett listened to the whole case carefully. "Mrs. Thompson, the situation is complex. Technically, Robert is practicing physical therapy without a license, but there are precedents for cases where alternative methods were accepted when there was proven patient improvement. What can we do? We need to document all of Emily's progress. If we can prove she's improving with Robert's methods, we can argue it's a special case." Dr. Bennett suggested they film the sessions and record every small bit of Emily's progress. He also recommended they seek a second, independent medical opinion. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was a nationally recognized pediatric neurologist. Melissa made an appointment and took Emily in for a full evaluation. After the tests, Dr. Mitchell called Melissa in for a private conversation. "Mrs. Thompson, Emily's tests show something very interesting. There's neural activity in the areas that were considered damaged in the initial exams." "How is that possible?" "There are cases of neuroplasticity, where the brain finds new ways to communicate with parts of the body. It's rare, but it can happen, especially in children." "Do you think Emily could walk again?" "It's too early to say for sure. but there is a real possibility of partial, maybe even full recovery. Melissa left the appointment with her heart pounding. Dr. Mitchell had confirmed what Robert had been saying from the start. "Mrs. Thompson, may I ask what kind of treatment Emily is receiving? Because the progress is atypical for the type of injury she had." Melissa explained about Robert and his methods. Dr. Mitchell listened with interest. "Would it be possible for me to meet this gentleman? I'm curious about the methods he's using." The next day, Dr. Mitchell went to Melissa's house to observe a session with Robert. She was impressed with the holistic approach he used. "Robert, where did you learn these techniques?" "Doctor, it was a combination of self-study, practical experience, and intuition. Every case is unique, so I adapt the methods as needed." "Have you ever thought about systematizing these methods? They could help many other children." "It's always been my dream, Doctor. But without academic credentials, no one takes my ideas seriously." Dr. Mitchell made a proposal that surprised everyone. "Robert, I would like to invite you to be a consultant at my clinic. We could work together on complex cases, combining academic knowledge with your practical experience." Robert couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Doctor, I would be honored, but what about the issue of my credentials?" "You would work under my supervision. It would be legal, and we could document your methods scientifically." It was the opportunity Robert had always dreamed of, but his priority was still Emily. "Doctor, I accept on one condition. I want to continue overseeing Emily's case until she fully recovers." "Of course, in fact, she would be our first official patient." Melissa was overjoyed. Finally, Robert would be recognized for the work he did, and Emily would have the best possible treatment. But Dr. Peterson wouldn't give up easily. When he learned about the partnership between Dr. Mitchell and Robert, he was furious. She hired lawyers to try to prevent Robert from working in the field. Dr. William, Melissa's lawyer, received a notice from the hospital demanding that Robert stop interfering with the treatment of patients who had been there. "Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Richard is claiming that Robert is violating medical confidentiality contracts by accessing Emily's information when he worked at the hospital. Is that possible? It's a weak allegation, but it could complicate things. We need to prove that Robert didn't use confidential information, only general knowledge about spinal cord injuries." The case was becoming a complex legal battle, but Emily continued to progress every day. During an especially intense session, something extraordinary happened. Emily was doing a concentration exercise when suddenly she deliberately moved the toes on her right foot. "Mom, Uncle Robert, look!" shouted Emily, moving her toes again. Melissa began to cry with emotion. Robert was visibly moved, but tried to maintain his professional composure. "Emily, that's fantastic. You managed to control the movement." Dr. Sarah, who was observing the session, was impressed. "In 20 years of my career, I've never seen such a rapid and significant recovery." Emily's progress was filmed and documented. Dr. William knew that was the moment to use the video as evidence of the effectiveness of Robert's methods. "Now we have concrete proof that Robert is doing exceptional work. We'll use this to challenge any attempt to stop his work." But the legal battle was far from over. Dr. Richard hired a lawyer specialized in lawsuits against healthcare professionals, determined to destroy Robert's career once and for all. Dr. Richard's strategy was to question the safety of Robert's methods. He claimed that unconventional exercises could cause long-term damage, even if they were showing short-term results. Dr. Sarah decided to join the legal battle on Robert's side. "Dr. Richard, as an experienced physician, I can affirm that Robert's methods are safe and effective. Emily is being constantly monitored, and all progress is scientifically documented." "Dr. Sarah, you are compromising your career by supporting methods not recognized by the medical community." "I'm compromising my career by supporting results. Emily is recovering, and that's what matters." The medical community in Denver was divided. Some supported Dr. Sarah and Robert, others sided with Dr. Richard. Meanwhile, Emily continued to progress. She could already move both feet deliberately and began to have sensation in her legs. The progress was gradual but steady. "Mom, I feel like my legs are getting stronger," Emily said during a session. "You're right, Princess," Robert replied. "Your muscles are responding better and better to the stimuli." Dr. Sarah documented everything meticulously. She was preparing a scientific article about Emily's case to publish in an international medical journal. If we can publish this case, it will be a milestone in the field of neurological rehabilitation, Dr. Sarah told Melissa. Could this help other children? It could help thousands of children who received diagnoses similar to Emily's. The pressure on Dr. Richard was increasing. Other parents of children with spinal cord injuries began to seek information about Robert's methods. The hospital was losing patients. Dr. Richard decided to launch a personal attack. He hired a private investigator to dig into Robert's past, looking for anything that could compromise his reputation. The investigator discovered that Robert's sister, whom he always said had recovered, had had a relapse years later and returned to a wheelchair. Dr. Mauricio used that information to question Renato's honesty. He lied about his own sister's case. How can we trust someone who falsifies results? When confronted about the information, Renato was visibly shaken. It's true that my sister had a relapse, he admitted. But it wasn't because of the exercises. She stopped the treatment and had another accident. Why did you never mention this before? Asked Valeria. Because I was afraid they wouldn't believe in my work. It was a mistake to omit that information. Dr. Helena supported Renato. Renato, what matters is that you learned from this experience. Sophia's case is different and she's being constantly monitored, but the revelation shook some people's trust. Valeria had moments of doubt, but Sophia's steady progress reassured her. The situation reached a critical point when the State Board of Physical Therapy opened an ethics case against Renato, accusing him of practicing illegally. The hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning. Renato, accompanied by Dr. Antonio and Dr. Helena, appeared to defend himself. Dr. Mauricio was present as a witness for the prosecution. He claimed that Renato had put Sophia at risk by using unapproved methods. Members of the board, the accused, may have good intentions, but he lacks the technical competence to treat spinal cord injuries. He could have caused irreversible harm to the child. Dr. Helena took on Renato's defense. Members of the board, as a pediatric neurologist, I can attest that Sophia has shown extraordinary progress under Renato's care. Methods that are used under proper medical supervision. The board requested Sophia's presence to evaluate her current condition. Valeria brought her daughter to the hearing on a Friday afternoon. Sophia, now more confident, demonstrated for the board all the movements she had regained. She wiggled her toes, contracted her leg muscles, and even managed to slightly lift herself from the chair with support. Uncle Robert taught me that I am stronger than I think, Sophia told the board. He never gave up on me when everyone else said I would never walk again. Sophia's emotional testimony moved everyone present. Even some skeptical board members were impressed by the results. Dr. Mauricio tried to argue that the progress might be temporary, as in Renato's sister's case, but his claims sounded hollow in the face of clear evidence of Sophia's improvement. The board decided by a vote of 5-2 that Renato could continue working, provided he was always supervised by a qualified doctor and scientifically documented all his methods. It was an important victory, but Dr. Mauricio was not yet ready to give up. He appealed the decision and tried to take the case to higher authorities. Meanwhile, Sophia continued to progress. 6 months after starting treatment with Renato, she could already stand for a few seconds with support. "Mom, I think I'll soon be able to take a few steps," Sophia said one sunny afternoon. "Do you really think so, honey?" Uncle Robert said that when I can stand on my own for a whole minute, it will be time to try walking. Valeria could hardly believe Sophia's transformation. The girl who just a few months ago was discouraged and hopeless now overflowed with confidence and determination. Dr. Helena was finalizing the scientific article about Sophia's case. She had submitted the work to one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. "Valeria, if this article is accepted, it could revolutionize the treatment of spinal cord injuries in children," said Dr. Helena. "And if it's rejected, even if it's rejected, we already have enough evidence to prove the effectiveness of Renato's methods. Other cases are being documented at my clinic. Robert had been working at Dr. Sarah's clinic for 3 months and had already helped 5 children with different types of neurological injuries. Everyone was showing significant progress. "Robert, you need to start training other professionals in your methods," suggested Dr. Sarah. The demand is growing a lot. Doctor, I'm still refining the techniques. Each case is unique, and I need to better understand how to adapt the methods for different situations. You could develop a training course. I'm sure many physical therapists would love to learn. Robert was very excited by the idea. He had always dreamed of sharing his knowledge with other professionals, but never imagined it would be possible. Melissa, seeing Robert's growing success, decided to make a proposal that would change everything. Robert, I have a proposal for you. How about we create a research institute for neurological rehabilitation? What do you mean, Mrs. Jenkins? I can invest in creating a center specialized in innovative rehabilitation methods. You would be the technical director, working alongside Dr. Sarah and other doctors. Robert was moved by the proposal. It was more than he had ever dreamed of. Mrs. Jenkins, I would be honored, but I don't want you to feel obligated to do this out of gratitude. Robert, it's not gratitude. It's recognition of exceptional work. Emily is about to walk again, and that is impossible to put a price on. Dr. Sarah fully supported the idea of the institute. It would be perfect. We could train professionals, conduct research, and treat patients from all over the country. While plans for the institute were developing, Emily reached an important milestone. She managed to stand on her own for more than a minute. Uncle Robert, I did it. I managed to stand on my own. Congratulations, Princess. Now it's time to try the first steps. Robert prepared a special exercise for that moment. He set up parallel bars in Melissa's backyard and explained to Emily how the process would work. Emily, I'm going to hold your right hand, and you're going to try to take a little step with your left leg. Don't worry if you don't succeed the first time. Emily firmly held Robert's hand and concentrated. Slowly, she lifted her left leg and took a small step. I did it. I took a step, Melissa cried with emotion. Dorothy, who was watching, also couldn't hold back her tears. Emily, you are a warrior, said Robert, visibly moved. At that moment, everyone knew that Emily would walk again completely. It was just a matter of time and persistence. The news of Emily's progress began to circulate in the local media. A reporter from Rocky Mountain News contacted Melissa to do a story about the case. Mrs. Jenkins, I would like to share Emily's story to raise awareness for other families going through similar situations. Melissa agreed to participate in the report, but insisted that the focus be on the work of Robert and Dr. Sarah. The story aired on a Tuesday night and had a great impact. Hundreds of families contacted them seeking information about Robert's methods. Dr. Richard watched the report and was furious. He realized he was losing the battle and decided to make one last attempt to discredit Robert. He approached other hospitals in Denver and tried to form a coalition against the unconventional methods that were gaining popularity. But the medical community was divided. Many professionals had seen the results of Emily and other patients of Robert and began to question their own methods. Dr. Richard organized a symposium to debate the risks of alternative treatments for spinal cord injuries. He invited experts from other states to support his position. Dr. Sarah and Robert were invited to participate in the debate and defend their methods. This is the moment to show that science and innovation can go hand in hand, said Dr. Sarah. The symposium was held in the auditorium of the University of Colorado School of Medicine and was attended by over 300 healthcare professionals. Dr. Richard opened the event by defending traditional medicine based on solid scientific evidence. We cannot allow unproven methods to risk our patients' lives, especially children. When it was Dr. Sarah and Robert's turn, they presented a video showing the progress of Emily and other patients who had been treated with innovative methods. Colleagues, I present to you concrete evidence that innovative methods, when applied with proper supervision, can bring extraordinary results, said Dr. Sarah. The video showed Emily taking her first steps, causing a tremendous impact on the audience. Many doctors were visibly moved. Robert was invited to speak about his methods. Doctors, my work is not meant to replace traditional medicine, but to complement it. Every child is unique and deserves personalized treatment that explores all possibilities for recovery. The audience applauded at length. It was clear that Robert had earned the respect of those present. During the debate, several doctors asked technical questions about Robert's methods. He answered confidently and demonstrated deep knowledge of neuroplasticity and rehabilitation. Dr. Richard tried to attack Robert with questions about his academic background, but Dr. Sarah intervened. Dr. Richard, knowledge isn't acquired only in universities. Robert has practical experience and results that speak for themselves. The symposium ended with a symbolic vote on the acceptance of innovative methods under medical supervision. The result was 80% approval. Dr. Richard left the event visibly defeated. His attempt to discredit Robert had backfired. In the days following the symposium, Dr. Sarah received dozens of requests from doctors interested in learning Robert's methods. "Robert, the time has come for you to systematize your knowledge into a formal course." "Doctor, I would be very happy to teach other professionals. The more people know these techniques, the more children we can help." The institute that Melissa proposed to create began to take shape. A plot of land was acquired in southern Denver, and the architectural plans were being finalized. "It will be the first center in the United States specialized in innovative methods of neurological rehabilitation," explained Melissa to a group of investors interested in supporting the project. Emily continued to progress rapidly. She could already walk almost 100 yards with minimal support, and was beginning to regain her ability to run. "Uncle Robert, when will I be able to run without support?" Emily asked during a session. "Soon, sweetheart, you're almost there. We just need to strengthen your leg muscles a bit more." Dr. Sarah was tracking every bit of Emily's progress for the scientific article she had submitted. The journal had requested additional documentation, which was a positive sign. "Melissa, if this article is accepted, Emily will be known worldwide as a success story in neurological rehabilitation. She deserves all the recognition. She's a little warrior." 10 months after starting treatment with Robert, Emily achieved the goal everyone dreamed of. She walked alone without any support for over 500 yards. "Mom, Uncle Robert, I'm walking by myself," shouted Emily, beaming with happiness. It was a moment Melissa would never forget. Her daughter, whom doctors had said would never walk again, was running across the yard with a smile that lit up the whole place. Robert cried openly. All the years of study, all the difficulties he had faced, all the skepticism he had endured, everything was worth it in that moment. "Emily, you did it! You proved that miracles exist when we don't give up." The news of Emily's full recovery spread quickly. The Rocky Mountain News did a news story, this time showing Emily running and playing like any normal child. Dr. Richard Peterson, seeing he had completely lost the battle, resigned from Rocky Mountain Medical Center and moved to another state. Melissa and Robert's Institute was inaugurated 6 months later under the name Emily Center for Neurological Rehabilitation. The goal was to honor the girl who had proven that the impossible was possible. At the opening ceremony, Emily was invited to cut the ribbon. She was radiant, wearing a blue dress and running back and forth across the hall. "I want to thank Uncle Robert, who never gave up on me, and my mother, who believed in him when no one else did," said Emily into the microphone, with the maturity of someone who had gone through a life-changing experience. Robert was called to speak and could barely contain his emotion. "Emily taught me that determination can overcome any obstacle. She was my teacher as much as I was hers." Dr. Sarah Mitchell announced that the article about Emily's case had been accepted by the American Journal of Medicine, one of the most prestigious in the world. This case will inspire doctors and researchers worldwide to rethink their treatment methods. The Institute began receiving patients from all over the country. In 1 year, more than 200 children with neurological injuries were treated there, and 85% showed significant improvement. Robert developed a training course that began to be offered to physical therapists across the country. His methodology was officially recognized by the American Physical Therapy Association. "I never imagined I would come this far," Robert told Melissa one sunny afternoon, watching Emily play in the Institute's garden. "You deserve all this recognition, Robert. You saved my daughter and are saving hundreds of other children." Emily, now 10 years old, had become a kind of ambassador for the Institute. She visited other patients, told her story, and inspired other children not to give up on their dreams. "Uncle Robert always says we are stronger than we think," Emily told an 8-year-old girl who had arrived at the Institute that week. "If I did it, You can do it too. The transformation in everyone's life was complete. Melissa discovered a greater purpose for her life and her wealth. Robert found the recognition he always deserved, and Emily proved that miracles happen when we don't lose hope. 2 years after the Institute's opening, Emily was participating in children's track and field competitions. Not only had she regained the ability to walk and run, but she had become a talented athlete. "Mom, I want to dedicate myself to track and field when I grow up. And I also want to study physical therapy to help other children like Uncle Robert helped me." Melissa smiled, knowing her daughter would always carry the lesson that persistence and faith can overcome any obstacle. Robert, now 47 with well-groomed grey hair, was internationally recognized as a pioneer in innovative rehabilitation methods. He received invitations to lecture worldwide, but never stopped personally treating the Institute's patients. "Every child who comes through here is special," he said. "Emily taught me that we should not accept limitations when there are still unexplored possibilities." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you are watching from. Emily managed to prove that determination and hope can overcome any diagnosis. Do you believe Robert made the right decision by persisting even when facing so many difficulties? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. We would love to read your point of view. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.